Sunday talks about sex, baby. Sunday talks about you and me. Sunday talks about all the things pertaining to living with HIV. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Hey, it's Sunday.
Yes.
So you know what that means. You know what people are doing.
I think I got it. We talking about sex, right?
You're doing good.
It only took me 7 episodes, but I got it.
We've been working on this. The only thing you thought folks did on Sundays was church.
Yeah,
but they do other things too. They do sex talks and anyway, we'll move on. So today we're talking about HIV disclosure with a little bit of convo even on criminalization, I think, because
Absolutely.
I think the two kind of go hand in hand. But disclosing one's status when you're living with HIV is a very interesting conversation to have that has so many nuances and so many pieces. And I think that I would dare say that there would definitely be amongst us some that are watching that would be potentially wrestling with the conversation around disclosure. Be that disclosure to family, be that disclosure to their community or their circle of influence.
Or significant others.
That's the biggest part,
others.
Right? And I think that's probably what we're going to dive into the most today.
Absolutely.
Is that disclosure piece to intimate partners. But before we dive into that, I think it's important to kind of frame the conversation by first talking a little bit about HIV criminalization.
Yes.
So CDC, literally as of this year, as of 2020, reports that there are 37 states in the U.S. that still have HIV criminalization laws on the books. So we're talking about people can be prosecuted for things as relates to their HIV. Sometimes that has to do with disclosure. Sometimes that has to do with engagement. There's a lot of nuance with that. But talk to us a little bit about HIV criminalization and how it affects the HIV community.
So with HIV criminalization laws, they've been problematic from the beginning. Like, let me be clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, what they are is basically punishment. Punishment for someone who is living with HIV for a failure to, or I'll say seemingly failure to disclose their status. And let me say this much. The problem with HIV criminalization laws is that they are not based in fact. They're not based in science. They're based off of rhetoric that we received at the early onset of the epidemic, and that's why they are problematic.
Absolutely. So the science is nowhere in the mix with these laws.
Absolutely.
And so to demand that someone disclose their status when we understand things such as U equals U.
Yes.
And that's not to say that I don't advocate for and encourage disclosure, but it is also, I think it's a both sides. We have to put responsibility on both sides of the coin, that we can't criminalize one person in a relationship and not the other person. Each person has to take accountability for,
I'm glad you said it,
for their own health, right?
I'm glad you said that.
And so if we understand U equals U, which actually, can you tell the people a little bit?
So,
maybe they haven't been watching. Tell the people a little bit about U equals U.
We've talked about this before, like 3 or 4 episodes ago. But undetectable equals untransmittable. So basically what that means is that as long as my HIV status is manageable, I'm on medication, I've received an undetectable status, which that means that I cannot transmit the virus to a sexual partner. Period. And so that's probably one of the biggest problems with HIV criminalization laws, would you say, is that they don't take into account that new information, which, I mean, U equals U has only been around for 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
So like that's probably one of the biggest problems. But the other biggest problem is that regardless of whether like U equals U is a factor or not, no one's health status should be weaponized
Absolutely.
against them.
You
Like,
can't create laws in place of public health measures.
Thank you.
Like there's no way to create enough laws or enough policy that addresses what really is a matter of public health.
Absolutely.
I hear you, friend.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. So when we're talking disclosure, I think back to, and talking HIV criminalization even, because I hear folks, I hear y'all, I hear you saying that, well, if somebody is running around here with HIV, they need to be telling people that they have HIV. And while I do not disagree with you that it is important to disclose, I also think that it is important for us to realize that there are so many ways in which these laws are weaponized against people living with HIV. For example, I have a dear friend that after a breakup in a state that was a mandatory disclosure state, after a breakup, their partner decided that they were going to lie and say that that person did not disclose their status. And the person was arrested and literally went to trial behind this circumstance. And so they had to do all of this legwork to try to prove that they had disclosed over the years. And so there are ways in which this is really weaponized against particular groups and particular people, because we understand that disproportionately people of color are affected by this HIV epidemic.
And isn't that twofold? Because like not only are we disproportionately impacted by HIV as an epidemic, but we're also disproportionately impacted by mass incarceration.
So it's an ongoing cycle. There's this ongoing cycle, and then you add to that fitting on the LGBTQ plus spectrum. So now we understand that Black and Latinx men who have sex with men are the most affected group by this virus. And so that being the case, we have then the weaponizing of the system against this group. And so there are so many pieces to this. And then again, like you said, the science is not included in the way these laws are written. But lest I get too deep into that, let's shift a little bit and talk about disclosure in the sense of, if I want to tell friends and family, if I want to share with an intimate partner. I think back to when I had the opportunity to disclose to my family. I disclosed to my parents individually, and then I disclosed to my immediate family, my siblings and their families. I disclosed to them all in one larger setting. And we had this big educational moment at Nebraska AIDS Project, and it was really transformational for me, and it took a lot of weight off of me, because it put us in a setting where people had an opportunity to ask the questions that they would need to ask at one time.
Yeah.
And I have a larger family, as you know, as you can relate to. And so it makes it a little easier. It made it a little easier for those questions to get answered in one swap.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the emotional labor of repeating oneself time and time and time again.
Yes.
And that may not be an ideal situation for everybody that wants to disclose. And even more specifically, it gets rougher when we talk about disclosing to a partner.
Yeah.
And so I was looking up helpful tips as far as disclosure, and pause.com has some great tips that I just really want to walk through and just converse about. Some you may agree with, some you may disagree with, but let's just talk about it. One of the suggestions of Pause Magazine is, as far as disclosure, to be selective.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that selective piece. Why be selective?
I mean, because your business is your business.
Like
that's probably the biggest piece of it. And I mean, to me, there is a certain level of autonomy that is like, especially when it comes to matters of your health, right? So not everybody is privy to that information, and truly, like, if it's not about you or going to affect you,
why do you need to know?
Why do you need to know?
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I think that we have to, as a community of people that are not living with HIV, actually, you'd be surprised, even as a community of people that are living with HIV, I think that we have to be careful not to make the expectation that a person living with HIV has to now give this mandatory announcement about their health condition to the world. It's an unfair expectation that folks need to just tell everybody.
And not only that, like, you know, and I get, like, okay, there's been a whole bunch of conversation about, oh yeah, like, I'm gonna speak y'all language because I know that this is
speak the language.
He got that package. He need to be sharing. He need to be telling people. And however, you, as the HIV negative person, need to take responsibility for your own health.
Absolutely.
You, like, you need to ask those pertinent questions. You need to, when's the last time you've been tested? Let's go get tested together. Like, those are things that need to be asked upon. Those are the kinds of conversations that need to happen, especially before you lay down and lay and play with somebody.
Absolutely. Come on, lay and play. Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Being selective. I understand that we don't have to tell everybody everything because it just is not their business. Really, one of the biggest questions my case manager said for me to utilize in that disclosure piece is ask yourself why. Why am I telling this person? What is my why? Why do I need to tell them?
Exactly.
It's a reason. Exactly. Another piece, actually, going into those whys, Pause Magazine recommends that you consider the 5W. The 5W. So, who do I need to tell? What do I need to tell them about me living with HIV? When do I tell them? Where's the best place to have that conversation? And why am I telling them? So back to, you already addressed the who. It's really about what is the significance of this individual as relates to this information. What good is it to do to tell them? Why am I telling you?
Well, like, I guess, like, the biggest thing is, like, if I'm telling you, then I foresee, you know, the possibility of this being a long-term thing. But also, like, if I'm telling you, that means I care enough about you to share this, like, the most, I don't want to, intimate information.
It's a very vulnerable conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that there is, and to be fair, just to speak on the other side of the coin, because we don't want to be unfair to those that may not feel safe disclosing, and it's not about care. There may be a care there, but there may be a feeling of a lack of safety, and that could be on an emotional level, that could be on a physical level. There are a lot of pieces that go into that. But I agree, sharing that information carries with it a level of, like, I'm giving you some vulnerable information here. And I think that is, for lack of a better word, to be applauded and acknowledged as such.
Absolutely.
Because, again, it is vulnerable information that people do, they react and respond in a number of different ways. And so I think the who and the why are tied together. Let's talk about that when and where piece.
So the when and where about it is truly up to you as the individual. Definitely, like, I will say that if there is a fear of a negative response, then the best place to do that is a public place. You know, because then you can they kind of gives you a little bit of control over the situation. But also, like, if you feel like I don't know. It's really just kind of about filling out the person.
Yeah.
Like where do you feel is most appropriate for you to have this conversation?
I think that it's a conversation that needs to be had outside of the bedroom.
Absolutely. It should,
And by that,
it should not be pillow talk.
Yeah, it shouldn't be pillow talk. It shouldn't be right before we engage, or something of that sort. I think that is that could be a risky situation.
Like, hey, my name is Tommy.
For a number of reasons.
My name is Tommy, and I am.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not like in that format at all, but like that should be like conversation, a piece of the conversation before laying down. And
before the laying and playing.
Yes.
That's a conversation before we arrive at the bedroom, and then when we talk about the win piece, I think that again that is really contingent upon who it is that you're dealing with and what feels best. I think that in my dating situations, I always share early. I share early to get it out the way.
And that is a proud choice.
I'm like, let's throw this on the table now.
That is a proud choice.
Because if it's a deal breaker, let's let it be a deal breaker now. Okay.
Avoid the disappointment. But also, I want to uplift like individuals who may not be comfortable. Like maybe they want to put fillers out. Maybe they want to set out the person to see how they
might respond.
React.
Yeah.
Like those are things that have to be taken into consideration prior to disclosure.
Absolutely. So the next thing Pause Magazine suggests is easy does it. So you can take your time and consider who to tell, how to tell them, decide what's your why for telling them, and just really easing into the conversation. Not feeling like you have to, like you said, hi, I'm Tommy, and I'm living with HIV. Like that doesn't have to be the out of the gate conversation. And so easy does it. It is good. We don't have to be on the first date and be like, so how you feel about HIV? How you feel about people living with HIV? I think that could be a little overkill. So easy does it.
Listen, because I respect the fact that people don't know everything that I know, but that's because I do this professionally.
That's it.
But also, I got to kind of get back to that point. Is like I don't want anyone to feel pressured.
Absolutely.
Regarding their status and how they should go about sharing.
Which is a great segue into this next piece that Paz recommends, and that is no need to apologize.
Absolutely not.
No need to apologize. And I love this piece. I love this because many times there is a level of guilt and shame that people living with HIV carry as if they are a problem, as if they are a potential damage or wrecking ball to someone else's health. I think that we talked last episode about the idea of engaging in sexual contact with somebody and that level of fear and trepidation that you have, especially for folks that are engaging in condomless sex, that fear of, I remember after my diagnosis, like that first engagement is like, I feel like I may be killing you.
Right.
And so that level of shame and stigma that one holds for themselves, that nobody else even has to project onto them. So when you talk about that no need to apologize, it takes you out of that deficit mindset and puts you back in a space of abundance that says, you know what, I am no different than the next person.
You shift and you starting to preach.
Okay. All right.
Because you preach.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving out of that deficit space, moving into a space of abundance and speaking about myself with all of the good qualities associated with me and not feeling like I have to downplay who I am, how I am, or all of these risk factors to dating me simply because I'm living with HIV. No, I am no different than the next person aside from this diagnosis, and we have to conduct ourselves as such, and so no need to apologize. Look,
absolutely.
You got a virus.
You have a virus, it doesn't have you.
That's it.
Like that's That's the biggest
end.
thing. Period. Exclamation point, actually.
Paz also recommends keep it simple.
Yeah. Don't overcomplicate.
My God.
Don't overcomplicate things. Like, I know that there's a ton of information out there, where you might want to try to over explain just the science about it.
Yeah.
But really, it doesn't take all of that.
Yeah. Don't do a dissertation. Don't do it. It's overwhelming. I encourage you to think back to, for those, there are actually some people that are living with HIV that may not be as well versed about the virus themselves as they perhaps even should be. But then for ones that are well versed about the virus, I think it's important to understand that, like, everyone doesn't have that level of information.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does not know how HIV attaches itself to the CD4 cell and begins this process of taking over the body, and like, nobody knows all of the details of that science, and you would do good not to delve too deep into that.
You don't want to overwhelm anybody with the abundance of information.
My goodness, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. So yeah, like, and I think, like, the other thing, I think these last 3 points that Paz covers really kind of we can roll those into one.
They do.
So really avoid isolating yourself. So for those individuals who are watching, who are living with HIV, do not isolate yourself. Do not isolate. There is literally a community of people out there that can support you. You're looking at 2 of them.
Absolutely. And I think I like that you said community of people, because sometimes you don't always find your people that will support you in this journey with HIV in the context of your biological family. And sometimes that has to be chosen family. Sometimes that has to be a support group. Sometimes that has to just be that trusted face that people know from the community. And so whatever that looks like, I think that it is important that you connect with someone that knows the information, that knows your status, that you can share some of those intimate and deep details about the feelings that you're having, about the days of depression and
because they'll happen.
They come, the days of feeling emotionally overwhelmed with the circumstance, and sometimes even feeling physically overwhelmed by some of the health complications that come associated with the virus for some folks. And so there are all sorts of things. So I think it is important to be connected to people, because we're not designed to handle everything by ourselves.
Yeah.
We need people.
Yes. The other thing is that, like, always, like, we've given you a litany of information in this 20 plus minutes that we've been talking. But the most important thing is, like, trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Go with your gut.
You will know when it feels right. And this is something that I still struggle with. Like, as public as I've been about my status, like, there are situations where it does not feel appropriate for me to share that information. But then there are just, on the opposite side of that, there are situations where I'm like, okay,
here it is.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Here's me. Here I am. And so, like, always trust your gut when it comes to that part of you.
Absolutely. And I think that leads perfectly into the last suggestion from Paz Magazine, which is to just relax. Like, just relax. Knowing that you're not the only one that has had to disclose this information, if you choose to disclose, knowing that you are surrounded really by a multitude of people. There are millions of people that are living with HIV that have had to have this conversation with a partner.
Yes.
That have had to have these hard conversations with loved ones and sometimes employers and things of the sort. You'd be surprised of all of the opportunities in which somebody runs into this issue of disclosure. And so That being said, I think it's important to just
don't put so much pressure on yourself to where you feel like you have to give like all of the information. Keep it simple.
That's it.
Keep it simple.
That's it.
Keep it simple. Don't try to give all the science behind it. Like, really, if you're going to choose to disclose your status, disclose it. Engage appropriately, would you say? And then figure out where to take the conversation from there.
Where do we go from here?
Where do we go?
Where do we go from here? Is there anything that you can think of on our way out that maybe Paz didn't mention? Maybe their list is not all exhaustive. Is there anything that you think could add to this?
I really feel like you have to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
That's probably the biggest thing. Like, I have been surprised. Like, speaking with certain individuals about my status, and feeling like these are the individuals where I just thought like I was gonna get like just like the most negative reaction. Like there was
this is it.
Like I prepared for it. Like I was like I was
the
gonna
moment.
get. Like, not only was I going to get a negative reaction, but like the vitriol that was going to be thrown in my direction afterward. Yeah. Like, that was a thing. But honestly, like, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have to, like, I like to say, like when it comes to HIV prevention, you have to meet people where they're at. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to disclosing your status, you have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to.
Meet people
where they're at. And if there is a gap in their understanding, then at least try to fill the gap.
If you feel like they're worth filling in the gap.
If you feel like it's worth it. Because
it's emotional labor.
Is.
And I ain't doing it if I don't feel like they're worthy of the emotional labor.
Is.
That's it. Okay.
That's all.
I think
that's all. That's all. But
there's another side that's coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But before we wrap up, because I feel like that's where we're going.
Yes.
You've all been on this journey with us for the last however many episodes.
Yeah, we in there.
But I definitely thank you all for joining us.
Absolutely.
And there will be more.
Yeah.
There will definitely be more. But what I definitely want to encourage you all to do is to join us on our next episode, where we're actually going to have community members join us for a real just candid conversation.
All things HIV. Nothing's off the table.
Nothing is off the table. So I definitely encourage you all to join us. I thank you all for joining us on this journey.
It's been a great journey.
It has been. We've had a good time.
Great time. I think, friend, you looking smaller as the journey as the journey goes on. You're looking mighty medium over there. You might not be in a small shirt, but baby, you're somewhere between a small and a medium.
I'm trying. I'm somewhere between a size 32 and a 33 in the pants.
Come on and do what you need to do, friend.
Bless.
Okay? And that's not to body shame nobody. That's just to be sure that you look the way you want to look and feel the way you want to feel when you look in the mirror. Okay?
To be clear, I run 4 miles in the gym every morning. Bless.
No, baby, we gotta go. This is what we want y'all to do. Have the day that you want people living with HIV to have.